Welcome, wellness and fitness leaders, to the Revenue Machines podcast. I am your host, Ben Ludwig, and I am very excited about today's guest. I actually got a chance to meet him personally quite a few months back at the Health and Fitness Association conference, and Jason Breazeale is his name. He's the VP of Technology over at Burn Bootcamp, which, if you haven't heard of Burn Bootcamp, what rock are you living under? Because these guys are taking the world by storm. And Jason really made me laugh because he's just missed tech. And as we were talking at the Health and Fitness Association conference, we started talking about technology and some of the things that Burn Bootcamp is working on. And he made me laugh because he went, "Oh, you speak the language." We ended up talking a lot about just nerding out over how fitness and tech are blending, which I just really loved that conversation. So Jason has quite an interesting background. He has worked in innovation and digital for restaurant and retail, and really, in my opinion, brings a very fresh perspective to the fitness industry. I think sometimes within the fitness industry, we get caught only looking at what other fitness companies are doing. And Jason has brought such a fresh approach to that. So Jason, super excited to have you on, man. Are you ready for this?
No, totally ready. I'm ready to talk all about nerd stuff for a little while with you guys.
If you like nerd stuff and you like fitness, this episode's for you. So today what we're going to
Absolutely.
talk about is scaling sweat with AI, how Burn Bootcamp is leveraging tech to power member experiences and operational excellence. So Jason, again, super excited to have you on the show, my friend.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So first question. So, Jason, in your role as the VP of Technology, in your opinion, what role does tech play in enhancing both member journeys? And then also, you guys have over 300 franchise locations, right? So,
Yeah.
So what also does technology play in franchise business performance?
Yeah, it's really key. I've spent a lot of time in franchise, and so Burn Boot Camp has about 370 plus gyms, and we're growing astronomically. So that's really the key for us, is continuing to grow and manage all of these different parts of the business. We have the in-gym component where we're managing memberships and we're managing subscriptions and we're managing everything around everything that it takes to get in gym and take camp and process all of those memberships online to be able to make sure we're giving a member experience in that way. Also, we have a full ecosystem. We have a very large activewear business, which we sell e-commerce and in gym. We have a large nutrition business. That's everything from creatine and collagen to protein. And we have an on-demand product that's driven by our custom mobile app that drives our member experience. It's a member tool. We book 1 million camps a month through our app
Hey,
for 140,000 plus users. And so that ability to really drive tech into every facet, but still maintain that community and the experience that everyone expects for Burn is really key. And then FranDev. I mean, franchise development is huge from a technology perspective. We have to consistently manage our brand experience, consistently manage the marketing experience, which is very different. That B2C marketing experience versus that FranDev marketing experience. How do you drive SEO? How do you continue to push the envelope there? It's just so different in that entire business, that ecosystem that's been developed by Burn, that now we're driving more with technology. And just like you said, it's interesting from a smaller business perspective. I think that's one of the things we always talk about with a lot of the fitness industry. There's so many, we have 10 sites, we have 5 sites, we have 30, 40 sites. At 300 plus locations, 400 plus locations, we start to think about enterprise class systems. And that's really been a big shift in the mindset as we've come in. I've got a lot of background in those enterprise class systems, working with the IBMs and the Microsofts and the larger NCR partners that are out there. That's not the partners we have available to us in the fitness industry. So how do we start to bring those learnings from outside and at that enterprise scale, so that we're not building everything, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. No, Jason, you said something. I did a little bit of mental math, on your amount of classes booked online versus your users, which means, tells me in my head as a boutique fitness operator and consultant myself, you guys have high usage rates. And so
We do.
that, but then I'm also thinking about, I have never really heard any franchisees of Burn Bootcamp. I've been to a couple dozen locations myself just to see. And I always hear good things. So how do you parallel the customer experience and then the franchisee? Because the franchisees are your customers as headquarters. So how do you
Absolutely.
parallel that? How do you decide what initiatives you're going to lean into?
It's always a struggle when you're in the technology space, especially because we as nerds tend to come to it and say, okay, this is a tech that we need. This is something we need to roll out. This is the next generation of what's moving. What's the next big thing?
Yep.
But we've got to prepare that in multiple ways in franchise, right? So it's not just about rolling a software package out and then rolling an app out and then going and telling everyone that this is what's happening. I've got to sell this to 200, 300 plus CEOs, little CEOs of their own business that
Yep.
have made their own investment, that have their money on the line, that pay into a tech fee every month. And if I'm not driving value through the tech fee, that's really the key of any franchise organization. I have to be in sales all the time as much as I am in technology. So understanding it enough to take these high concept technology solutions like AI, what
Right.
is AI, and explain it in crayon, right? I've got to be able to explain it to someone whose main job is to run a gym, to drive fitness, to be able to process memberships and define profit and revenue. They
Exactly.
don't necessarily aren't all. I have some great, strong technical background franchise partners who maybe used to work in IT or something that are part of a technology advisory council for me. But many of them just want the tech to work. They don't want it to get in the way of the experience they're driving, the members that they're building, and the communities that they're serving.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, Jason, I actually am a student of the fitness industry. And so I join and cancel gyms all the time just to see all different kinds of experiences. And I'm not going to say the name of the gym, but I just joined a new gym the other day and I had so much trouble trying to get into the app. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I give up. I'm just telling them my phone number when I go in next time. And
Yeah,
those are the type of experiences that can create a negative thought process for the customer, which could that possibly make someone that's already not excited about working out not come back? I mean, you have to think about
absolutely.
those things. You have to think about those things, right?
Yeah. It's about building a frictionless
Yeah,
experience. I mean, that's really
exactly.
the key is, and these are user experiences that, like I said, I started working out in retail and restaurant. I was big into retail during the time of Amazon Go when you could
Oh
just
yeah.
walk in, pick it up and walk out. That was the definition of a frictionless experience. So
Yep.
what we did is we did that comes into play in every time I think about whether it's a digital experience. How many clicks does it take for somebody to get a job, right? Done. They come to your site, they come to your app, they come to your digital experience with a job to be done.
Uh-huh.
How do you make that job accomplished with as few clicks, as few frustrations, and not having to type so much data in? It's so important for us to pre-fill information to to keep track of it. If they've given you their first name, last name, email address one time, replicate that everywhere else. Don't ask them for it again. Ask me once, fill it out the rest of the way. That's a
Yeah.
frictionless experience that we're driving towards.
Exactly. That actually brings me to the next question because, Jason, your team has scaled fast. I mean, up to 370 plus locations now at this point. And so what sort of challenges along the way did you come and overcome when it came to figuring out how to be able to utilize tech properly or things not working? Or I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's the enterprise grade of some of the software packages that we use, whether it's our POS systems or our CRMs, that we tend to be the largest customer in these spaces, a big fish in a little pond.
Yeah.
And even though they may be really, really large implementations of POS solutions and some of the bigger ones that are out there, there's a lot of small players, right? So many of these software companies are selling to somebody with 1 to 10 to 30 locations, and they're just not as enterprise class as we expect, or as I've come to expect from outside the industry, from the IBMs, the NCRs, and the Microsofts, right? So when you look at those things, you've got to say, am I going to go with a best of breed approach? Or am I going to go with an in-house built set of apps? And I've got to figure out where that matches. So as we've looked at it, our entire tech stack, I'm an enterprise architect at heart. And so, the Lego blocks that make up my architecture is really the key of the way I think about it. So I want to make sure I know what are the key things that I need to differentiate my business and anticipate my members' needs, my customers' needs, my FP's needs to be able to drive technology that I may buy from
Yeah.
someone else or that I may build myself because nothing exists. We're talking about loyalty right now, which is a great example. Loyalty has existed in supermarkets since the late 90s. It's
Yep.
existed in restaurants since the early 2000s. It's not a huge play in fitness, but it could be.
Yep.
It could be a game changer. It could be the thing that drives retention. It could be the thing that reduces attrition. How do we take the challenges that we all track and challenge ourselves on? Sometimes we're tracking in poster board on a wall with stickers. How
Uh-huh.
do we take that and make that a digital experience and then start to incorporate all of these amazing things that we're doing right now with all the wearables? That's going to be the key to really unlocking that member tracking experience and giving them a one-on-one personal training experience in that group fitness community setting.
Love that. Yeah, that's one of the things I totally agree, Jason. I think in the fitness industry, we track milestones, and that's about it. So how do we get better at that? So I know that a lot of your background in restaurants and retail has so much to do with consumer behavior. So what does
Mhm.
it look like at Burn Bootcamp, or in your opinion, for the fitness industry? What does it look like for us to get better at figuring out maybe identity tags or some of those things that we don't really talk about in the fitness industry?
Loyalty and customer data platforms, right? CDP is a concept that really came of age in the last 3 or 4 years, especially post COVID. In the restaurant and retail is something that they spend a lot of time building, and they spend a lot of time chasing information in fitness that we already have.
Yeah.
We know a member's first name, last name, phone number, email address. They give that to us for the opportunity to become a part of our gym. We're not chasing that information like you would. I mean, half the time, 40% of transactions in restaurants are still cash. And if
Yep.
they're coming in cash, they're still, you have no idea. They walk in and walk out, and you have no personal one-on-one connection. You have to chase that connection, build that connection, give them an experience, give them a loyalty program, incentivize them with promotions. We've got that data. And what that data allows us to do is take the things that we used to feel were very creepy and very big butt brother. And I always laugh and say, the moment we started letting Amazon and Walmart deliver inside our houses and inside our garages, everything else stopped being creepy. But all of that data that comes from third party, what we call third party and even fourth party data around just massive amounts of data that's out there on where you're shopping, what are you doing, where's your location on your phone taking you, all the things that Meta and Amazon and Facebook are using for advertising targeting, right? We're not kidding. When I say something and I talk about it, and we're talking about this podcast, I may get one of your TikTok promos when I pick my phone up, right? Because it's always listening, but more importantly, it knows the context of what we're doing. We can start to leverage that and build customer data platforms in a way that we've never thought about. And so that's one of the big partnerships that we're building right now is how do we target market based on all of this data? Because one of the big things with all this data, how do you crunch it? How do you get it into a place where you can actually make actionable decisions on it? The answer is AI.
Yep.
If there's one thing that I can say about AI is that it's going to change the way we target and the way we absorb and compact data into actionable things, so long as we have our data in a place where we can actually use it in that way. But that's the biggest thing about customers, about members,
Yep.
is how do we understand their movements, their patterns, their buying, what are they watching, what are they listening to, what are they doing, based on the fact that we have all this member information to attract them in a different way, to retain them in a different way, to meet them where they are, which is really the key.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, Jason, I think that's very insightful. I think from a 30,000 foot view. I also know there are a lot of executives that are listening to this podcast that are going to hear that and have some actionable steps. But I also know we have a lot of owners and franchisees that are listening to this where they're going, "That's way out of my league. I don't even know where to start with that." But what I do know about Burn Bootcamp is every location that I've been to, it's community and connection are two of the things that I've really noticed inside of your facilities. So how, maybe if you could give us some more specific examples on the ground level. So what does that look like for the gym owner to be able to balance automation and personalization?
It's exactly what you're saying. It's about making it actionable in the gym. That's what we have to do with everything. So whether it's our entire data warehouse platforms that we're doing that are bringing the data into visualization,
Yeah.
making those visualizations real in gym. So one of the first things we did is really take a look at our leads process. It was kind of a mess when I got here, but it's one of the most important things we do. Attrition is the nature of the fitness industry. So how do we overcome that? We drive leads, sales. Our goal is to drive you and get a butt in the gym and then convert that to a member. And so the goal is really around that. How do we make those things actionable? You do that through your partners and your CRM. So the CRM solutions that allow that kind of automation, allow that type of if this, then that capability. Many people are using everything from even the, like I said, the big partners. You're using the HubSpots, you're using the LoopSparks of the world. You're building automations, and you're building those automations based on the top of the funnel, but the mid funnel, right? How do I retain? How do I get the bounce backs? How do I reactivate members? How do I drive those automations? And then when you get down into the smaller gems, the smaller concepts that are out there, you're probably using Basecamp and Notion, and
Right.
you can build those same types of automations based on interactions with your first party data. That means any interaction that you and that member have with your brand. But then you can get access to third party data in so many different ways. Experian, AI concepts like V. There's a ton of other companies that you can partner with. That AI seems very scary. Like you said, I always laugh about this on when panels, and when we talked about this at HFA, I say, most AI partners tend to come to me and they've got 12% of a solution. They've got an algorithm, they've got a machine learning program, but they have no way to take my data and make it work within that system. They have no way to make that actionable in my gems. That's what a VP of IT does. That's what the CTOs do. That's what your managers of CRMs are doing, is taking all of this great data that I've got out there and making it actionable. But I think you can do that even more and more now with the chat GPTs, as we're starting to get some of those data, those agentic AIs, and partnering with companies like DX Factor, right? That's a great conversation that we can have, is they've got AI and agentic AI ready. They can process large amounts of data and then give you those outputs. And then those outputs become very actionable. You may think that you're serving a certain, if you've got 5 locations, getting down to a per location demographic to know who you're serving may tell you things like, I may need to have Spanish translation in this gym
Right.
because I didn't realize that I was serving a 30, 40% uh, Latin speaking or Spanish speaking member.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. Yeah, Jason, when it comes to the partnerships, I mean, you mentioned quite a few different partners that you guys have worked with, or opportunities for gym owners to partner with these organizations. What are your thoughts on, if I had to make decisions as a gym owner of what I have to have, what would you say are the essentials when it comes to maybe how you've partnered with DX Factor, or created processes at Burn Bootcamp? What are your thoughts on what's the necessities at this point?
Yeah, the essentials for that are absolutely going to be around driving SEO,
Okay.
having a partner that understands Google and Meta. I think
Yep.
that's the first thing I did, is who was our partner managing our listings, managing our reviews, managing our review responses. We selected a partner in Sochi primarily because of their ability to move forward into AI. So one of the things they have is Genius Solution. Their
Yep.
Genius AI solution is really just bringing ChatGPT to the franchise partner or into the gym owner's experience of responding to reviews. You never can underestimate the value of responding to reviews and where Google ranks you. Now, that's all great and fine for today, where SEO is what it is today. But as we prepare for this zero click future, where most of the information about our gyms are coming from AI responses, we have to start building sites and everything around that. And that's where managing multiple locations, having a good partner that stays ahead of that, especially as a gym owner, even at an enterprise level. We don't have time to chase Google's algorithm changes. But
Mhm.
partners in that space, DX Factor and Sochi, are great to keep up with that. So I would say the most important thing, SEO, the most important thing, driving your digital presence, staying in that top 10 on the first page of gyms near me, being able to understand what your SEO, what your keywords are, how are you managing organic, and then honestly managing some of your social experiences, whether it's organic social or, as many people don't like to believe, Reddit. We
Yeah.
all know that Google is actively pulling in Reddit information. I can ask very specific AI questions of Gemini, of Copilot, and get responses from Reddit before I get them from my site, which means I have to be very aware of my Reddit environment and what other people are saying about my brand, because
Yeah.
that becomes part of the AI zero click future.
It's true. It's true. With my time at F45 headquarters, we really had to learn about that and what we needed to do about that. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It was a chance for us to see a bit of the ahead of the learning curve in that regard. So, Jason, I think a lot of what you're saying is what you've done in the past, or the decisions that you've made, have been data driven and then have allowed you to make data driven decisions. I would love to hear how you and your team have maybe in the past made insight changes based on the data that you had, maybe for studio ops or programming. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I think it's a real key that we're doing right now. So, with our upcoming promotions, we're going to be focusing on direct to membership.
Mm,
Burn up until this point has been a very promotion based business, right? We, just like everybody else, we
sure.
at the beginning of the year, we want to catch those new year, new me people. And so we drive promotion, right? And so driving promotion tends to build out, but we've seen a lot of benefit if you give them a frictionless experience, a web burn ambassador experience to have that sales process online.
Yeah.
You can convert directly to membership via the web, and that's really one of the big things we're trying to do is start offering this direct conversion to membership because it reduces that sales cycle. I
Right.
mean, if you think about a 4 week promo, and then I've got that person who bought it in the last 4 weeks, I could be in a sales cycle for 7 weeks. That exhausts in-gym staff. How do I move more to this online selling capability, this direct to membership offering for those members so that my in-gym staff can start to really drive the high value, what we call our blue carpet experience,
Right.
to the non-negotiables that we have around providing a great experience in the gym to build that community rather than just being constantly on the sales cycle. And that's really the key for us is we want to start driving that. So that's a big shift in our business, is saying, hey, we believe fundamentally that direct to membership has a great play, is either a stand beside for the promotion or is a potential replacement in some of our examples. So how do we start to do direct to membership? And that's all driven off of data.
Yeah. I think there's so many examples of that that I've seen from a franchise perspective. And then also, even just as a consultant in the industry, to a lot of private brands where there's a lot of resistance to posting prices online, or there's
Right.
resistance to not letting people try your product before they buy, or even the length of usage when it comes to the length of your trial. I mean, I've consulted quite a few gyms that have month-long trial process. And I mean, it's
Mhm.
just, if you not only the fact that the cycles are shorter now, but also if you consider the cost of payroll and how many times am I reaching out to this customer? How many calls does
Right.
it take? How many touch points does there have to be? When in reality, the relationship could have started with a membership on day one, if
Yes.
we even have that option, to your point, right? So, Jason, I'd love to hear your thoughts on future looking when it comes to innovation and technology. So, what are you excited about in fitness tech specifically, as far as what you see on the horizon?
I think one of the key things, and I can talk specifically about a project we're doing with DX Factor, which is our Burn GPT, and it's going to be the ability. We know AI is going to change the way we find and process data.
Right.
If any other gyms are like us, I think most gyms are like this because most enterprises are like this. You don't have everything in one place.
Right.
We have, Fran Connect for certain data. We have Widen as a digital asset management solution. We have all of some data stored in SharePoint sites. We have data stored in OneDrive folders. We have data stored in intranet sites, and we share a significant amount of data depending upon what the job is.
Yeah.
ChatGPT answers those questions. And so for us, it's about securely. We finally believe that we've gotten to a place where AI and the generative AI, especially, are at a place where it can be walled garden. And I've secured my data, I've prepared my data to be able to get it ready for this ability to search. And so giving franchise partners one place to go to ask a question, and maybe it gives that generative response. Hey, based on these documents, I think you should do this. How long does it take to open a gym? What is the lease cycle? How do I execute fall promo? What it can do is give that generative information, but more importantly, give the links direct back to the direct
Yeah.
source. If it gives that link to somebody and just tell them, hey, this is my information I gave you, but more importantly, here's the links to the source data of the most important thing. And that really changes the game because so many people are used to saying, how many times did we communicate to the gym? How many times did we push out information? How many times do we have to send copies of something? How many copies got out of sync? So it's just as important to prepare your data
Yeah.
for that AI future as anything else, making sure you have one copy, one setup, all in the same place that you have access to it. We're even starting to talk a little bit about video data. Many of our trainers, we have a trainer portal. It's where all of the workouts are posted, camps are planned, trainers mod up, mod down, videos posted. And so many of those videos are not ready for a GPT type searchable experience.
Right.
But if we put all of those videos through descriptive video, we can start to really change the way that we think about the outputs and then make them AI ready. And so as we're building data and becoming good owners of our own data, we're saying, okay, this has got to be ours. It's got to be ours, not just in a way we can visualize it, but also in a way that we can find it more effectively through an AI future.
That's yeah, Jason. I was actually featured on a panel of franchise fitness experts, having experience with multiple franchise fitness brands myself. That was one of the questions that we were asked: is what do I look for in a franchisor partner to be able to make sure that I'm choosing the right organization that I want to work with long term? And that was one of my answers. Is I said, you need to look for a partner that's finding ways to make your life easier, a partner that is seeking to ensure that your onboarding experience is seamless, that you always have the answers to your questions, that it doesn't take 50 clicks to find that document that you saw one time in your discovery day, finding ways to be able to simplify that, which can take a lot of time and energy and create a lot of frustration with the brand. And honestly, at the end of the day, it decreases trust, which makes it even harder to evolve. Because to the point that you made earlier, Jason, when you're constantly adding new portions to your tech stack or finding ways to innovate and become better, well, you're going to come against resistance if your people don't trust you. And so I think that's one of the most important things that allows franchisors to be successful. So I love that you guys are doing that. Vein, Jason, I think about my experience when it comes to restaurants, for example. If I go to a restaurant and I have a bad experience, I may never go back to that restaurant. And so I would love to hear your thoughts. This is kind of a blue sky question. I want you to just take this and run with it. But at large, what do you think the fitness industry can learn from other industries, especially with your diverse background?
Yeah, I think it is around that type of trackable experience. It's about building that frictionless experience and then really taking that feedback and keeping that information. Like you said, going into restaurants, you may have a bad experience, right? And to that end, you may have such a bad experience that you do a Yelp review, or you're definitely going to post a Google review. It could be that bad, but at the very least, you're going to not never go back,
Yeah.
right? But if you were incentivized to come back, if they reached out and said, hey, we're sorry we had a bad experience here. How can I entice you back? How can I incentivize you to give our brand another try? And so that's really the key is being able to learn from that's a daily impact. And we just take a great example of this was attrition. We take attrition for granted. I've had the same conversation with some of the industry leaders and panels that I've been on. The fitness industry, everybody just says attrition is part of life. Yes, it is. Right. But if you have 3, 4, 5% attrition, that is an acceptable level. It
Yeah.
also means that you're spending a ton of money in advertising. You're spending a ton of money chasing leads. We've got members and they love our community. They love our fitness product. They love being a part of our gym. What they don't love is when they get alienated from it, when
Right.
they lose their passion. So how do we leverage these types of things to drive passion back into that member? A great example that we had one is the ability to use retention. We're using AI as a play to say, hey, what is all of this third party data that's out there? There are solutions out there like Placer AI that will tell you when your members are parked in a Crunch parking lot for 2 hours or searching for Peloton online, right? They use that type of information that identifies to us that a member is at risk. And that's not to go and bash them about the head with that information, but maybe it's time that that member needs a little bit more love. They need a little bit more engagement. We can generate those automations with CRM, create those pathways that, hey, let's send them an email. Let's remind them why they came here in the first place. Let's put I had a great analogy that I continue to use is what would you do as a gym owner if you knew every time someone walked into your gym for the last time,
Mm.
they were wearing a red hat?
Yeah.
What if you could identify that? We all have CRMs. We tag our members with certain things. We have certain to dos that are out there. If you can apply that at risk information with all of this third party data and then just have a to do for your staff the next time that person books camp, the next time that person walks through your door, to give them an experience above and beyond, to re energize them in your brand, it keeps them from going to another brand. They're not going to be part of your attrition numbers. They're going to be part of your customer lifetime value extension.
Yeah. Jason, I think about restaurants, for example. I know that I'm not going to have one restaurant that I like, so I'm going to go there for the rest of my life. So, how do you, in the fitness industry, I know that we are evolving to the point to where aggregates are now a huge part of the industry,
Mhm.
more than they've ever been, to where our members are not necessarily looking for only a third space all the time. Sometimes that's the case, but not always. So,
Right.
how do you interpret that data, or how do you, in your opinion, figure out how to, market to those people that maybe are doing cycle one day, Pilates the next, and then Burn Bootcamp twice a week? Or what does that look like in your mind?
Well, it's even in the partnerships. I mean, it's about having an offering that matches everything that meets a member where they are.
Mm.
I may have members who go into an HVLP and take their phone with the Burn on Demand app so they can do burn in that HVLP environment,
Yep.
right? That's a great example of having an ecosystem that they can plug into. Maybe
Right.
they are going to those things, but how do I drive up my average member revenue, right? So my AMR is how many dollars they spend with my brand. That's where the nutrition and the activewear comes in. That's where I'm meeting them where they are from that perspective. But more importantly, I want them to always be driving their fitness forward. And so if I become the hub for their information, we all know that everybody's got Apple Health and all of the different things that they're using for tracking their fitness, tracking their MyFitnessPal. How
Yep.
do I start to become the hub for that with our app? And that's what we're working on in our next generation of my plan, which is going to be that ability to bring aggregate wearable data to track your PRs. And more importantly, it becomes the basis for loyalty. So you talked a little bit about what are we learning from outside.
Yep.
Loyalty is a key to keeping people engaged with your brand. And that means being something for them and giving them something. The reason you go to one restaurant and the reason you come back, maybe that 20% coupon that you get in there, maybe
Yep.
that free appetizer on your next visit, because their job is to think about it from, we used to call it, when you would think about the restaurant, it would be when you went in the door until you went out of the door. But that's not the whole customer journey. The
Right.
customer journey starts on the couch when you're thinking about ordering food
That's
or
right.
going to get food, all the way till you get back on the couch and you're thinking about the experience you had and what you're going to do next time. You have to expand that customer experience where we're taking that for members to drive them into challenges. These challenges need to be in our app. It's the reason, like I said, restaurants, great example. Buy four, get the fifth one free. It's the old punch card methodology. We could start with that in fitness.
Mhm.
How do we say, hit three PRs and then you get 20% off of your next activewear purchase? How do we start to incentivize so that we can control member interactions with our brand through challenge based loyalty? And challenge based loyalty, it's not points programs. We're not Marriott. We're not necessarily driving coupons. We don't have a coupon incentivized business, but we understand challenges in fitness.
That's right.
Challenge based loyalty is totally a thing. Do this, get this. It's the nature of why we're here. Do this, get stronger. Curl this, bigger bicep. Do this number of things. How do we start to use that from our brand experience? Post to Instagram, tag your friends, bring a referral, come to camp,
Mhm.
buy activewear, buy nutrition, and then incentivize them through other things that we want them to do that may be targeted to them. One of the great things in restaurants we always used to talk about was, how do we take somebody who comes in only at lunch and get them there for dinner? Well, you give them a 20% off after 6 p.m.
Mhm.
We can do that same type of thing in fitness.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so funny, Jason. My wife and I are a split household. She's an Apple user and I'm the rebel. I'm an Android user. And so my wearable is actually a Garmin. And so we always compare and contrast the challenges and all the things that pop up on our watches. And, I think those are two platforms that have done a really great job of figuring out ways to use human psychology to be able to drive activity. And you're so right. I mean, there's so much that we can learn from these other industries on how simple it is if we simply follow where human behavior takes us.
Mhm.
And so I will say, Jason, man, you guys are doing some great things with your app and with technology. And I'll tell you what, if you find a way to Uber Eats a 6 pack of abs to my house, then I'll sign up tomorrow.
I'll sign up for it too. But it's like you said, it's also about meeting our members where they are. The Uber Eats conversation is really good because it kind of reminds me what you said earlier about being able to sell contracts online. I had a lot of pushback too. I have the OGs, the franchise
Yeah.
partners that have been doing
Yeah.
this for 15 years, and they say, I don't want to sell online. I want that in-person experience. I want I want that sales experience. You may, but your customer does not.
Yep.
And that's not necessarily, and if you're not meeting the customers where they are, the story I love to tell is we used to talk about especially post COVID, the average Gen Z orders from DoorDash 3 times a week. They Uber Eats 3 times a week.
Wow.
My 20-year-old son will order Uber Eats and then go deliver Uber Eats to pay for it. He won't deliver his own food, but he'll go and deliver somebody else's. But that's about meeting members where they are. There are a group of members who may be just as enthusiastic, just as extroverted, just as wanting to be a part of your community and your gym. They don't want to be a part of your sales process. They want to click and buy a contract online. And if we're not meeting them where they are, they're not going to come to our gym.
Yep, that's true. It's true. I think, I was also in that camp for a long time, Jason. I know a decade ago, as I was starting to get into boutique fitness or high priced, memberships, I also didn't want to go online because we got so much pushback a decade ago because people were comparing us to, Crunch Fitness or Planet Fitness and saying, wait a minute, your membership is how much? I'm paying $10 over here. Never mind. I don't want it. And so I think at one point in the industry, it was very much about the experience. So you could see and feel the customer service and how different and how more personalized it was, which, yes, that's still true. But there's so many ways to be able to do that, to your point of what you said earlier, while you're on the couch to the point that you walk in the door, as opposed to trying to get you to walk in the door as our point of customer experience, which I think was the most profound thing in that last portion that you mentioned. It's so true. We have to evolve with the rest of the world as a fitness industry. So Jason, one last thing for you. A lot of the people that are listening to this podcast are going to be considering probably what this looks like for them or what this means for them. So what are maybe one or two actionable things that you would recommend that every gym owner, every operator does with this information?
I think the key is really just to always be curious about some of these new technologies. You can hear about it every day. We know that even in 2025, just from January to today, the change in AI has been dramatic. We're starting to see really a lot more of these solutions that maybe you're already invested in are already working with AI, so you don't have to worry about that. Have the right partners, have the right platforms, and own your data. That's really the key. If you're as a gym owner, as an enterprise owner, as a mid-market or small medium business that's starting up to own a certain number of gyms, start thinking about your data and data ownership. Don't just let it be out there in your POS or let it be out there in your CRM. You need to have a central view of it, because if you don't care about who your member data is and what your member data is, you're never going to make it actionable. You're never going to turn it into something, because unless you fully live in the ecosystem of a mind body or an ABC, and you've got every single thing from that one partner,
Yep.
you're going to have an ownership of your own data that makes it accessible everywhere else, whether it's your app, whether it's DX Factor doing some custom development for you, whether it's another partner of moving between POS and your CRM, and maybe they're not always from the same partner. You've got to figure out integrations. And that's a whole new world of technology today with Amazon. But you can find partners, and this is where I'll kind of continue to plug the DX Factor team, like DX Factor, that can do almost anything that you need. You need to have a partner that's out there that's helping guide you through the next version of what we're going to do with AI. Because as much as we think it's changed over the past 5 years since COVID, we've seen nothing yet. What AI is going to do to this industry and every other industry over the next 18 months, 24 months, definitely over the next 3 years, is going to be just crazy. It's going to build, it was one of my marketing tech people loves to say, it's going to feel like a year a month when we move through this stuff.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I love that. Well, Jason, this has been an awesome conversation. You've dropped a ton of golden nuggets, I think, for our listeners to be able to take away from. If people want to learn more about you or Burn Bootcamp, where can they find you?
LinkedIn, always find me there. We'll share my email in the contact, so anybody feel free to reach out. We'll be at the FitTech Summit this fall, and so just love to connect and talk nerd stuff with everybody.
Fantastic. I'll also be at the FitTech Summit, so I'll be looking forward to seeing you there, Jason. For all of our listeners, again, we are sponsored by DX Factor. And so I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the team at DX Factor for building this podcast for us. Just as a reminder, if you want more information on how to be able to utilize AI or build custom solutions to make your data make sense to you, and really give you a true return on investment. DX Factor doesn't build software, they build revenue machines. Thanks for listening to episode number 2. We'll see you next time.